When you don't have boundaries, when you don't protect them, when you let people do things that feel uncomfortable to you over and over and over, oftentimes this started in childhood, maybe started later on in life, but again, oftentimes it starts when you're a kid. It conveys a certain lack of self-esteem and self-efficacy, right? You don't feel like you're worth standing up for yourself. And that same sense will keep showing up for you over and over and over in life if we don't do something about it.
Welcome to the Ignited Recovery Podcast, a new way forward for anyone looking for answers but feeling left out. If you've been searching for empowerment, triumph, and purpose, you've found them right here. You won't hear the same solutions, and you're not going to have any excuses to fall back on, because Ignited Recovery allows heroes to rise and become their best selves. I'm Dr. Sophie Jaffe, and I can't wait to be your guide on this journey. Are you ready to become an ignited hero?
There's an issue that comes up a lot around the work I do with mental health and addiction, and that is one of boundaries. It is incredible how many people have such a hard time maintaining or even knowing their own boundaries. Now, the thing is, when it comes to addiction and mental health, we typically just look at what's going on inside for the person. So their biology, their trauma, things like that have happened to them in the past. And as we work on those aspects of self, a lot of the people I work with over and over and over, their life starts getting better. And then they hit a plateau. And the plateau may be they've reduced their use for a long time, but they keep having these binges. Or that they've reduced, but they can't cut it to more than, half or 60% of what it used to be before. And a lot of times that's when the work about their relationships and the people outside of them start coming up. And so we start really examining their social network, their family, their deep, intimate relationships, their children, everything like that, everything that falls along those lines. And what I found over and over and over after having worked with thousands of people is that the vast majority of people I work with either have no boundaries, have never set boundaries, or don't even know what their boundaries would be if we talked about it. And the reason I'm bringing that up here is the way I think about boundaries and the way I talk about it oftentimes with the clients at Ignited is think of an open meadow, right? Like a purely open field. And that would be somebody with no boundaries. Anything is go. You can go anywhere you want, do anything you want. Well, most of us actually live with a fence. Think of I'm imagining this horse kind of meadow, and there's an area where the horses can actually walk around safely, right? And so you contain that space with a fence. That fence provides safety. It provides a feeling of trust. It gives people a sense of knowing the boundaries of what exists in their reality. And oftentimes, people who struggle with addiction and mental health have left their boundaries a long time ago. Maybe they're not even aware of where that fence is exactly defined in their inner world. And they may have had a lot of breaches, a lot of breaks of those boundaries over time that have broken. Imagine like little holes in that fence that they've done nothing to patch up, and they feel resentment, fear, anxiety, and mistrust around. And so what we do oftentimes around boundaries is we start this process of defining what it is. First of all, really understanding, what is okay and what is not okay for me. And there are many areas of boundaries, but I will just give you some so you can talk about them here and you can think about them for yourself. You have social boundaries and sexual boundaries, physical touch boundaries, money boundaries. You have boundaries around physical space, right? You may have known somebody in the past who can get right 3 inches, 4 inches from you and talk to you really incessantly and enthusiastically. And you may know people who need 3 or 4 feet of space and they feel like you're encroaching on their personal space otherwise. So we have all these different boundaries and categories of boundaries in our life. And when you don't define them well, you don't know what they are, and it's much easier for people to break through them. So the first step is always you have to define your boundaries. You have to know what these are. The second step is actually that you want to communicate those boundaries to other people. And that is the part I want to talk about most today, because here's a funny thing. Even having done a lot of work with people, understanding, diving in and defining their own boundaries, it's in communicating those boundaries to other people that so many have an issue. And this question comes up a lot. How am I going to tell people about these new rules in my life? Now, here's why I think this matters so much. What's up, everybody? So glad that you've tuned in here today. We bring you these recovery episodes to help anyone who's struggling with addiction or habits that don't serve them break free of the cycle using the latest research and the most effective strategies that I've found over my years of doing this and thousands of people I've helped. Obviously, we offer this free resource to you because I know that getting help is hard and I want to make it as easy as possible. So even if you never join our online hero program or come to our retreats or come and work with me individually, I want you to at least have access to the same powerful tools that have changed thousands of lives. If you like this and think it's useful, please give us a rating on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or just wherever you're listening to this right now. It really helps get the word out about this free resource, which is important since my goal is to help over 1 million people. So thanks a lot for being part of the Ignited community. Now let's get you back to the help. I say this all the time to people at Ignited. Anybody can beat their addiction to anything. You just have to become a person who is not addicted. And this is a perfect example of what I mean. Why? When you don't have boundaries, when you don't protect them, when you let people do things that feel uncomfortable to you over and over and over, oftentimes this started in childhood, maybe started later on in life, but again, oftentimes it starts when you're a kid. It conveys a certain lack of self-esteem and self-efficacy, right? You don't feel like you're worth standing up for yourself. And that same sense will keep showing up for you over and over and over in life if we don't do something about it. Now, it is true. You have to become a slightly different person to become somebody who stands up for what they believe is right and wrong, right? Who tells someone that is in their social circle, their family, maybe even their intimate partner, hey, this thing we're doing, this thing I've experienced, this thing you do doesn't feel comfortable for me. It takes a different kind of person to be able to do that. And so one of the answers that I hear oftentimes when we get into this deep work with my clients is, oh, I can't say that to my people. And then the next thing I do with them is ask them why. What is it that scares you? What is it that comes up for you when you think of having this conversation with other people? And inevitably the answers come back. They're going to laugh at me. They're not going to honor my desires. I'm going to embarrass myself. I'm going to look and feel strange while doing this. And then I ask the ultimate question. What do you care more about? Embarrassing yourself for a few moments with somebody you love, or standing up for your worth as a human being? And I would argue that for a lot of us, there were many times in life when we would rather not stand up for who we are. We'd rather take the beating, take the abuse, sit quietly while things around us happen that we don't appreciate, that don't make us feel good, and just get through it. The only problem, and if you've worked with me at Ignited or read the book or anything like that, you know where this is going. The only problem is that those little incremental pain points, those little injustices, those little resentments, they build up over time. And as they build up, they become stress, anxiety, depression, fear, and shame inside of us. And it's those feelings that make us act in ways that will numb, subdue, make us forget about the pain. So it's not even really, do I want to embarrass myself for a handful of moments right here in front of somebody I care enough about to have this conversation with, or do I want to just let my self-esteem go? It's, do I want to wake up happy tomorrow, happier? Do I want to have a chance at a hopeful life where I feel like I'm worthy with everybody around me, or would I rather just not embarrass myself right now? And I think that when you make the question that clear for yourself, the answer seems pretty obvious. Nobody's going to take long-term pain for the rest of their lives instead of saying something slightly uncomfortable to somebody that they care about for a moment. But when you think about it, just in the instance of how am I going to feel in the next few moments, and sure, it feels better not to say something, not to rock the boat, not to shake things up, not to make somebody feel embarrassed, you or otherwise, for that moment. But the payoff is massive. So I ask you to do this little exercise with me. Think of a relationship or an area of your life where you've given this up, where you have rolled over time and time again and allowed for things to carry forward in a way that you don't appreciate, in a way that hurts you, that makes you feel less than, that makes you feel unworthy, unloved, unappreciated, hopeless. Just think of one area where this is happening in your life. And now think of one or two relationships in your life, close enough relationships that you care about doing this work with them, and relationships that could be improved if you stood up for your worth. And that's it. You don't have to plan how you're going to do something about it yet. I want you to be very conscientious about the role lack of boundaries has in these relationships around this area in your life. It could be physical touch, lack thereof, or too much. It could be people who are snooping into your intimate details and you want a little space. It could be things at work, things with your family. There are an endless number of options. But in my upcoming book, Unhooked, I'm going to teach you how to dive deeply and find these hooks, these opportunities for change, for massive change in your life. But it all starts with making a decision to stand up for yourself. I hope this was helpful. I'm going to be bringing you more content around this new book and this new Unhooked method that I've developed. But if there's anything specific that you want to hear from me, please shoot us an email, info@ignited.com. That's info@IGNTD.com. And if you like what you're listening to right here, do me a favor. Leave us a 5-star rating. Let everybody know about it. Share about it so we can keep pushing this message forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning in to the Ignited Heroes Recovery Podcast. I really hope you found the information here useful and that we'll see you back here next week. And look, I want to make sure that this podcast is the most useful it can be for you. So please let me know by emailing info@ignited.com if there are any specific topics or questions you'd like to have addressed. As usual, if you like this episode, I would love for you to leave us a 5-star review and rating. Thanks, and see you next week.